So my name is Michael König. I'm Associate Professor at the Free University of Amsterdam, and I'm also affiliated with ETH Zurich in Switzerland. My research looks at how companies are affected by different types of shocks. In the past, we have mostly studied how companies are affected by technological change. More recently, we have looked into how companies are affected by the corona pandemic, and we are looking into new ways into measuring this affectedness by firms. And one very promising way seems to be the analysis of company websites. And in this respect, we were very happy to collaborate with data provider to get information about companies' websites and how they write about the recent corona pandemic. So my research tries to use company websites as a new data source to measure how companies are affected by the corona pandemic, by the different policy measures that have been implemented, by the infectious dynamics, for example, across different regions, across different sectors, and also across time. For that purpose, we try to look at websites of companies and try to understand how companies write about the pandemic and whether we can get some information out of this. We then use this mentioning of the pandemic on company websites to classify this into different problem categories, like do firms face problems with production, do the firms face problems with supply, demand, and so on. And we have done some preliminary analysis of this using also the data provider search interface, which was very convenient for us to do this with a keyword-based approach. And we could, for example, investigate and understand how firms in Switzerland were affected during different times of the pandemic. In Switzerland in 2020 and 2021 there were two waves of this pandemic, and we could see that in some sectors firms were exposed more broadly to production shocks during the first wave of the pandemic, while this was less a problem in the second wave of the pandemic. So about a year ago, we started a collaboration with data provider using the website content as it is provided by data provider to understand how or which companies mentioned the keyword corona or one of its synonyms. And then we try to see which sectors and which countries across the world were mentioning corona the most. And we provided simple descriptive statistics and rankings over sectors and countries, and also how they changed over the first month in the year 2020. Based on that, we were then interested to see in which context companies mentioned the corona pandemic on their website. And so we developed a set of keywords that allowed us to identify whether companies mentioned corona in the context of a production problem, a supply problem, a demand problem, and some other categories. And we were then able to understand better what were the specific problems companies were facing, which sectors are most affected by that, and how that changed across time and also across regions. And so we did that for a specific country in Switzerland, where we also had alternative data sources to kind of compare the outcomes from this web-based approach. And we did find that the website information could be used to identify production problems on company websites. So my future research in collaboration with data provider and using their search interface will try to look at how the effectiveness of companies measured through mentioning the corona pandemic on their website differs across countries. So we started with an analysis for a specific country, for Switzerland. In the next step, we would like to expand this analysis to other countries, because this would allow us to evaluate the different policies that have been implemented by different countries, and also how the pandemic spread across different countries differently over time. And another direction that we would like to explore is to see whether The frequency with which companies update their websites, and this can be measured by an index that data provider has developed, which is called the heartbeat indicator, that this index can be related and correlated to the effectiveness of companies by the corona pandemic. So is it the case that the corona pandemic triggered certain firms to update and expand their websites? Or is it the case that companies that already have highly or frequently updated websites were less affected by the pandemic and were in this sense more resilient to this shock? So I believe that structured web data can be a very important data source for academic research because it has a very high coverage. So when we look at company websites, then almost every company has a company website nowadays. And so it would allow us to give an almost complete picture of an entire economy of a country or even worldwide. And it also allows us to, through looking at company websites, to have a highly frequently updated information about how companies are doing if they use their website as a communication tool to the outside world. So we have a very broad coverage that you cannot find in other data sources when it comes to including all companies and also in terms of highly frequently updated information that we can find there. In this way, I think it's a very promising data source for academic research in the future.